Hey everyone, I wanted to go through how to work through the exam. I'm going to try and go through this as efficiently as possible, but you should be able to pause and follow along. So let's take a look at the first page here. We've got a question that's asking us about the absolute configuration for each center, right? So basically just asking us for the R versus the S. So if we start up here on question number 1, right, we identify our chiral center, and then we just have to go through and assign what's on each center there. So we know we have a hydrogen, that's number 4. We're left with let me change colors here, right? We have a carbon here, right? We've got this carbon here, and then we've got this oxygen here, right? So we have oxygen and 2 carbons. Hopefully we can figure out that oxygen's number 1, and then we have a choice between a methyl group and a carboxylic acid group, right? And if we go through and quickly make our list, this carbon right here is bound to hydrogen, hydrogen, hydrogen. And this carbon right here is bound twice to an oxygen, once more to an oxygen. Okay? So if you're having trouble seeing that, you can just go ahead and draw it out, and that should be able to, you should be able to see what's going on with that at this point then. Okay? So if we clean this all up, then this will be number 2 up here, and then in the back here, this will be number 3. All right? So now we can simplify our molecule, right? So let's simplify this. There's our chiral carbon. Up here we have 2, down here we have 4, 3 back here, and 1 was wedged out. Okay, so now there's 2 things we can do. We can snip and swap, or we can rotate. Personally, it's a preference, right? I'm going to rotate around my axis there of the 2, so that means my 3 goes to the 1 goes to the 4, and the 4 rotates back to the 3. So 2 stays in the same place. My wedge and the dash relatively stay in the same place, right, where the bonds are. So my 3 rotated here, my 1 rotated there, and my 4 rotated into the back. So now we can just follow our rotation. S. Okay. So let's move on to the next one. We see we have 1 chiral center here. Whoops, why is that showing? Okay, we've got 1 chiral center there. We've got a nitrogen. Our hydrogen's here in the back. That's going to be number 4. And then we've got our 2 carbons to deal with, right? Carbon, carbon. So we got 2 carbons, a nitrogen and a hydrogen. Hopefully we can see that nitrogen's number 1. Then we got those 2 carbons, so we can make our list. That carbon there in pink, right, has 2 bonds to that carbon in blue, right? We're dealing with a double bond. And it also has a hydrogen. This carbon here in the pink is bound to another carbon and has 2 hydrogens on it. So we can compare our lists at this point. Right? This is number 2, and then this is number 3. The 4 is already facing away from us, so this is R. Here we've got 2 chiral centers in this molecule. Right, we got that guy there and that guy there. We're going to follow the same approach here. So let's start, let me just color this one black right here, right? So let's take a look at that one in black. It's got a sulfur bound to it. It's got a couple of carbons, and it's got our hydrogen here facing towards us, so that hydrogen's number 4. The carbon in blue there is going to be number 2, and the methyl group pointing away from us here is number 3. Right? So remember, if the 4 is facing towards us, we look at the perceived versus the actual rotation. Right? Perceived is just how we look at it right here. The 1, the 2, and the 3 look counterclockwise, but that is our perceived. The actual is going to be clockwise then. Okay, so if the 4 is facing towards you, perceived versus actual. Let me erase that. Come back here. So now we're looking at this guy. What is bound to here? Now we've got that guy in orange, that guy in orange, and that guy in orange, right? We've got our hydrogen here facing towards us again. Good. That's number 4. If we go through and make our list, this guy's going to be number 1, this is going to be number 2, and that's going to be number 3. The 4 is facing towards us, so again, it's an issue of perceived versus actual. We perceive it to be S, but in actuality it is R. So we have RR. Last one over here, we got 2 chiral centers, the one in the blue and the one in the pink. Okay, go through and do our same assessment. Oxygen, we're looking at the pink one, the oxygen is going to be 1. Our carbonyl up here is going to be 2. Our methyl group is going to be 3. Our hydrogen is facing towards us, which is 4. Perceived versus actual. Perceived to be S, actual is R. So let's take a look at the blue then. And so let's take a look at the blue. We've got the oxygen bound there, so that's going to be 1 again. And then we get to a kind of a sticky point here, right? So we've got this guy here in orange versus that guy there in orange. We make our list. That carbon in orange looks like a sulfur, right? That carbon there in orange is bound twice to another carbon and once to a hydrogen. This carbon here in orange is bound twice to a carbon and once more to a carbon. Compare our lists. This is 2. That's 3. Hydrogen is facing away from us. That's 4. So we just look at it the way it is. S. So R versus S. Let's see if I can zoom out. Right. Oops. Sorry about that. So there is the way that we answer number 1. And let me pause the recording then, if it will let me.